Hey everybody, welcome back to UR Free TV. It is Thursday, November 6th, 2025, and I'm so glad to be back with you here on the channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to Carol for the donation, and I'll jump in with my disclaimer. This video is for entertainment purposes only. It is protected by the United States Constitution, protecting free speech, as well as the Sullivan Act and reporting. It is not intended to bully or harass anyone, never to incite violence, hatred, or lawlessness of any kind. It doesn't give legal, medical, or financial advice, and there are further disclaimers in the description below. So I'm so glad to be back with you. Okay. You know, I'm really charged up today, and often that I kind of just calm down when I feel really charged up because the news is so intense, and it's you know it's a full-on battle that we're in right now. So we're going to jump into it. I think I will start by in the beginning of the channel. I'm going to plug my sponsor, c60evo.com/YAFTV. Use the code YFTV for 10% off. And this is my incredible sponsor, who is the incredible ESS60 molecule made in the best lab in the world in Houston, Texas, in this incredible reactor that creates fullerenes. They have separate businesses for they're just, all the fullerenes used in industry, etc. And then they have a separate process to make the ESS60 carbon 60 the most purified in the world. And what they're doing right now is they're giving an incredible sale that's going to be, I think, going on through Christmas. And this is going to be, I think, a 40% off for if you want to buy 6 bottles. You get 40% off, plus you add my code YAFTV for 10% off. You use the link below, and you'll just save tons of money, basically half price, if you want to give these as gifts over the holidays. So it's just launching, so I wanted to do this straight up. And if anybody, whoever has donated to the channel, you get 15% off, different code and link sent to you. It is an amazing deal. And basically, this is everything to clean out the garbage from your cells. This is the MCT oil. People use it hugely for workouts. It's the coconut oil. These are the capsules, which I love. I give away 2 bottles every month on this channel, and it's just fantastic. Turbo C, MS, all the nervous disorders, all of basically the chronic diseases that they have foisted upon us by the medical industry, big med and big pharma, are basically, this gets into your mitochondria. It cleans out all the garbage in all of your cells, sticks around, stays in your body for multiple days, up to 10 days, and keeps doing the work to go straight into your cells and your neurons, crosses the blood-brain barrier, getting the garbage out. So it's a fantastic product. The testimonials are amazing. New research on incredible results for migraines coming out. Just amazing. So check it out. And yeah, I'm super grateful to my sponsor. So thanks for listening to that plug. And now we're going to jump into the news. And of course, I always start by saying thank you to everybody supporting the channel. People who are supporting it monthly are the only reason that this channel exists, because that's what's supporting me right now. And of course, extra donations, Carol, thank you, are fantastic. So let's put on the glasses and jump into the news. Whew, there's so much going on, but I'm going to just calm it down here and start with what I think is a very interesting that happened today in the White House, which has to do with, of course, Trump making his announcement that we have now, most favored nations, drug price reductions, okay? And this has to do with MAHA, and it has to do with RFK Jr. and everything going on. While this was all going down, where they're basically saying, oh, Ozempic, it's only going to cost $150 now per month to everybody, and if everybody gets on Ozempic, then you will, you'll save the Medicare and Medicaid system, because therefore you won't have all these, because of your obesity will be gone, you will not have all these other comorbidities that come along with obesity. Crazy town, reversal of reality of just taking control of your health. But what happened here was so interesting in the White House. While they were doing this announcement of of the most favored nations drug price reduction. Usually it costs about $1,400 a month for Ozempic or Wegovy or these other drugs. And basically they, saying now you get 150, just go get it, lose some weight, inject this stuff into your body. And as I've been talking about for years now on this channel, this is, very toxic substances that are shot into our bodies. But what happened at the White House was so amazing while they were doing this press conference, and Trump tried to get RFK Jr. to sort of back up some of the stuff he had said about Tylenol to do with autism, et cetera. And RFK Jr. basically just wasn't willing to do it, said a little simple, kind of dismissed it in what he had to say. Obviously pressure going on there. But what ended up happening is you had, I think it's Graham Hensley, that's an approximation of the name of the man from Novo Nordisk, okay? One of these drug companies that makes these drugs literally fainted, okay, as he was going to go to the podium and speak about his companies, all the CEOs of the different companies. Eli Lilly was there. They were all talking about, isn't it great? We're going to give you this a cheaper version of what we were just fleecing you for before, to stick venoms and toxins into you from the Gila monster and the anglerfish. That basically he collapsed when he was coming to the podium. They had to shut down the entire thing, then come back up a little while later after he was removed. Apparently he fainted. And it's interesting, this is the second time that someone has fainted in the Oval Office during specifically HHS stuff. When Dr. Oz was, when Mehmet Oz was being sworn in, okay, as head of the whole Medicare, Medicaid thing, I think it was his niece or his granddaughter fainted in the Oval Office as well. And so you have to wonder, I think about directed energy weapons. I think of what Trump is having to go through all the time, whatever's going on here. We have a second fainting here of this man who said he is on one of these Ozempic type drugs, just a few minutes before that, faints before he goes to the podium. Huge, very interesting. And it's very curious. There's been this one of these. They're always trying to put out their popular media spins on things, and I'm not sure where this movie was, but which of the streaming platforms it was on. But this movie 0 Day, which I did watch with the awful Robert De Niro. He was playing kind of a Biden type figure who had stepped down from office because he had brain troubles, right? Brain troubles, right? And they were talking about this program in there that basically he was being hit with some voice to skull. They called it the operation was called Proteus, where they were just putting they were harassing him through his brain to the extent that he couldn't hold the office anymore. It's all predictive programming. It's all what they do, but it's very interesting. That was called 0 Day, which had to do with the sort of cyber polygon, massive takedown of the digital infrastructure in the US with planes falling out of the sky. Remember how they referenced that recently? And we see now the 10% reduction in flights and everything going on with the shutdown, et cetera. But very interesting to see this happening with these continued fainting in the White House. This isn't summer. It's not like they don't have air conditioning in the White House. It's winter now. And now we get him fainting dead away, to the extent that they had to shut down the presser and then bring it back up. After they brought it back up, Trump seemed even more pissed off, and he was just angry. He said, Nancy Pelosi resigning, that she won't do re-election, is fantastic for the country. He basically said she's an evil person, has done awful things for this country. Good riddance, basically, is what Trump had to say about Pelosi. And yeah, absolutely agree. But I did want to talk about these Ozempic drugs a little bit because, people don't quite understand what's going on here with what's in them. And, Mehmet Oz, he's saying, oh, this is about democratizing access to life-saving drugs. Go to TrumpRx.com, et cetera. And, these low-cost access to drugs with the most favored nation status that Trump made happen with the heavy lifting of RFK Jr. et al., again, will make Medicaid, Medicare affordable. We'll be able to keep paying for it as the Dems are trying to get all of that money that they've been laundering, that Doge had discovered, just all of this money that has been to do with the migrant invasion into the country, circling back into the coffers of the Democrats to support their campaigns, et cetera, their pockets and their riches. And Nancy Pelosi, right? She has that. There's a whole website and stock trading that goes on Paul Pelosi's trading, to do with if Paul Pelosi's doing it, you want to do it too, so you can make all the money that Pelosi's making on her complete criminal activity as a House member. But I wanted to talk about a couple things here. One, I wanted to talk about the anglerfish, right? Because we're in these drugs, these what are they, GLP-1 drugs. What we get here is this situation of toxins and venoms, right? And we've got the Gila monster venom, which is basically, Gila monster venom has to do with, it's a paralytic, right? It some of the side effects, okay, some of the problems. And it's just so funny that it's, obese people targeted that have all these comorbidities that can have these issues. But the issues that can come up are pancreatitis, massive kidney problems, including kidney failure, and of course this thing called gastroparesis, which is the colon motility shuts down. You can't poop. You just, it's like constipation on mega steroids, and just this is what goes on. That has to do with the Gila monster venom, but then, and for entertainment purposes only, totally. But then you get into the anglerfish, right, and their toxin. And I wanted to talk about the anglerfish and just think about what we put into our bodies and what God wanted us to put into our bodies. I'll just interject here. I don't use the healthcare system. I never have in my entire adult life. Okay. And, people, this whole racket, the insurance companies, of course, are the huge cash cows here with the pay for play with the Democrats and the deep state evil Republicans. Where the insurance companies just want their money, whether it is insurance through the real estate, weather war garbage, or it is the insurance companies for healthcare, which of course is the by and large hugest thing. And what we get here is big med, big pharma making all the money for the globalists, okay? Because this is not, it's not just, our Congress people making all this money. It is massive globalists making huge amounts of money to destroy us with, and people buying into healthcare as if you need it. Did you know you had something wrong with you before you went to the doctor? And if you did, how much of your money are you spending on insurance versus spending money on way cheaper natural things that can help you for entertainment purposes only? So the anglerfish, that the toxin of the anglerfish, that's all, and they, it's that thing with, it has the little thing that looks like a fishing one of those whatever you put on the end of your fishing line, right? The anglerfish, it has all these tentacles, and it catches its prey by getting them to come to these lights, right? And it's in deep, deep water. And what's so interesting about the anglerfish, it's a super ugly thing. And, if you look at it, you will see, and I have linked an article below that you can check out. And I know I'm already at 14 minutes, but I just, I think this is important to understand. God didn't want anglerfish, anything to do with the anglerfish in our bodies. That's why they live in the deep, deep ocean, okay? And the Gila monster lives in the driest of the deserts there in New Mexico and Arizona. And these things were not meant to be in human bodies. But just like with the rainforest that they're now COP30 is kicked off, Prince William is reinventing his father's wishes and his grandfather's wishes. There, I'll get into that. But the anglerfish, this is a crazy thing. So the males of the anglerfish physically fuse onto and into the females. Um, what they do is they go and they bite the belly, this large anglerfish, and the males that are much smaller, they come and they have these huge teeth, these razor teeth. They bite onto the belly, okay, of the female fish, and they get into the flesh, into the tissues, and they basically spit enzymes. Once they've opened the flesh, they spit enzymes into there. That starts this whole process where it begins to basically fuse them to the females. This enzymatic process. Okay, so I don't know if you can see me. All right, I'm trying to look for a new video service because now this is all corrupted with me, and this constantly happens with your free TV. I have to find a new streaming service, so I don't know. Hopefully you can see me right now. But anyway, after a while, um, uh, they fuse into the gut tissues there of the female. This enzymatic process happens where they start to basically just become this parasitic thing on the female, where their blood starts to flow between the female and the male that has attached itself and become this kind of parasite. It's kind of like a sexual parasite, and it's just this bizarre thing where eventually the male turns more and more into a parasite, where its kind of face and its organs start to dissolve, and what remains is like its testes and its sexual ability to reproduce. And they create this whole kind of symbiosis parasitic situation, and it's like a crazy thing where you get this kind of common circulation of blood. And this is something that the transplant community, has forever. The transplant big med that RFK Jr. is trying, making huge, reforming what's going on with the stealing of organs in the USA. But this kind of cannibalism, parasitism of these anglerfish has never been able to been, if you get a transplant organ, Jake Cheney could tell you, but he can't anymore because he's gone where the goblins go below. But basically, you have to take immunosuppressant drugs forever, and they haven't been able to replicate this anglerfish parasitic blood sharing, immune system sharing situation that goes on. And so I wanted to describe that to you because I think it's very interesting that we were never supposed to take these paralytic toxins into our body, certainly, and this is what they're trying to push. Okay, take these drugs to lose some weight instead of addressing your metabolic issues, instead of eating healthy, eating clean, and moving that way. So okay, I wanted to talk about that. Crazy day in the Oval Office. And so, of course, we get this Trump. What he had to say was Nancy Pelosi's retirement is a great thing for America. She was an evil person, corrupt, and totally overrated as a politician. I am honored to have been impeached 2 times by her, and 2 times she failed miserably. And of course, that's Doña Nena, right? Doña Nena, the head of the D'Alessandro mafia family, right, out of Baltimore, who I've always, for years, I've talked about. I really think, for entertainment purposes only, that Pelosi was an early monarch, and everything points towards that. So, anywho's, as the pictures it keeps taking my picture here. Excuse me. I think I need here we go. Every time I take a picture, I get a cough. All right. So anyway, let's move on from there. We've got huge things going on. Of course, Mamdani with you know, is now going to be in power in New York City. Massive fraud going on all over the board. And this is why President Trump has said, we will never secure our elections if we don't get rid of the filibuster. That this is the time. We're literally in the time of full-on war. And excuse me, if people don't understand what's going on, we're never going to beat it in the 3 years we have. We've got this one chance, right? As this is going down, and we have great things happening, like John Brennan, the grand jury now being revealed, indictments coming, charges coming against John Brennan for Russiagate, et cetera, at all. The Comey charges are sort of an appetizer into the larger Russiagate conspiracy against rights situation to be applied. Harmeet Dillon, Ed Martin over at DOJ. We get the Conspiracy Against Rights Act came in after the Civil War and had to do with going after the KKK, the Democrats, right? The Democrat KKK. And so we're at that time. We need to understand that it is time that we understand we're at war, and to use the tools that we have in getting rid of the filibuster, I believe, is one of them. And I want to encourage people to make the call to your senators and to your leader, Thune. Okay, Leader Thune's number is 202-224-2321. 202-224-2321. Because right now the Democrat senators are getting together to try to come up with a deal to get the Senate to agree to something to open the government back up. And yes, the government being shut down, whatever. But, and, this ending the filibuster will open the government back up. But as we're watching the threat by SCOTUS with the tariffs, with this squirrely situation that happened yesterday at the Supreme Court, and just the utter stupidity of so many of the Supreme Court members, we need to move forward with more extreme actions. As we're watching jihadists take over New York City. We're watching Sean Hannity last night after Erica Kirk interview came up on Jesse Waters on Fox. The first thing that Hannity had to say after that interview was, we are closer than ever. We are closer than ever. I mean, just amazing. We are closer than ever to having another large theist attack in this country. And this keeps coming out. It's coming out a lot through Israeli backed influencers. They're all saying we have this huge theist attack coming on the U.S. We've never been closer. And as if we don't know by now, Israelis' involvement in 9/11, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so this is all being pushed. And we need to understand that this is not about, let those New Yorkers learn their lesson. As Linda Sarsour came out and said, and she's the mentor of Mamdani, along with Siraj Wahhaj, and they are all connected with Alexander Soros and his wife, Huma Abedin of the Muslim Brotherhood, massively, hugely central in the Muslim Brotherhood, Barack Obama, and the Soros cabal of Zapatine and Francis, 100%, okay, that are all backing the destruction of America through this red-green alliance situation they do every time. Bring in the communists first, have the jihadis say, we completely back you, and then, of course, the jihadis get rid of the communists and bring in Sharia. And this has been happening all over the world. And we're seeing, Tommy Robinson just got acquitted for the first time in all of his charges after he did his indoctrination stint over in Israel for a week, right? And suddenly, for the first time ever, he gets acquitted of charges. I'm glad for him. However, right now we have this Birmingham game coming up in the UK, and Birmingham totally captured Islamist part of the UK where they're having, I think it's the Maccabees or something, this Israeli soccer team, football soccer team, huge game that's going to come up this week against all, saying this is a really bad idea. They're going to have this huge game in the UK in Birmingham with this Israeli team playing. Yeah. So what I'm saying here, filibuster, we need to get rid of it now to actually allow the executive powers and the administration to 100% do what they need to do across the board. And that has to do with the bill, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, plus everything else. We are in a dire situation. Again, the number for Leader Thune is 202-224-2321. The number for the Senate in general is 202-224-3121. Okay, and you can go to billblasterapp.org and do it that way if you prefer to do it online. But I think those calls really make a difference. And while we look at Mamdani, we saw everything that happened with the fraud, with all the BOMB threats, the shutting down, the machine's not working, the same playbook. That's why Trump's saying, if we can't do election reform, if we can't break through this filibuster and be able to put in election reform from a federal level across the country, then forget it. We saw with Prop 50. It came out today that we had OMG, the O'Keefe Media Group, put out a video where they had talked to who was the district head of some of the largest Democrat areas in California and San Diego and Orange County, basically saying this whole Prop 50 fundraising gig, all that money is going to revert to Newsom for his 2028 presidential bid. And we 100% did, gerrymandered the entire thing. The people of California lost their where is it? I can't find it exactly now, but basically what happened here with California is that they used to have a bipartisan commission that always did the redistricting, and they took that away. They put in a special commission, and now, of course, they gerrymandered the whole state, and they're Massachusetting California to get rid of 5 seats for Republicans. So it is really, really disturbing, and we need to do everything we can to stop it. And so we have, because I mentioned what happened there with Maha, and of course RFK Jr. and all the great work he's doing, although this pushing the Ozempic stuff, what the heck? We need well, I'll get into it now here in a second. What we need is organic farming, restorative farming in this U.S., and not who cares about China's purchase of soybeans. The corn and soy industry is destroyed with Monsanto Bayer our farming in this country. And what we need is what they've done in Russia, the hugest organic farming initiative in the world. And we need that here. And we've got Director Rollins out of the USDA just sleep in bed or whatever, okay, with all this crap going on with whether it is the cattle or the cattle. I'm going to get into that in a second. What we get here is 21 states on SNAP. The 21 of those blue states have refused to send their SNAP recipient data to the USDA. Okay, total mass fraud, because this is a whole, again, racket of the illegals having massive, huge, thousands and thousands of dollars in SNAP. All right, and this being a racket. And a fraudulent thing. 42 million people, only 30% supposedly are actual U.S. citizens, and so they won't send the data. And basically, they're trying to get the data so they can reform SNAPs to make sure it's only going to American citizens. And in Minnesota alone, 174% increase. 174% captured Minnesota by Islamist jihadists and communist Tim Walz. China wedding, Tiananmen Square, all of it. 174% snap increase from 2020 to 2021, okay, after the steal. And as the invasion took massive, gained massive momentum with Mayorkas, the Frankists. It's just like, come on. So basically, the USDA has cut off about 700,000 SNAP benefits to illegals, and but there's only 29 states cooperating. So those are 700,000 people who aren't citizens that were cut from SNAP from the cooperating red states, okay, which is a drop in the tiny bucket compared to the blue states. And so I wanted to just mention there while we're on this, and then we're going to, there's so much more to say. But I did want to, while we're on this, talk about something really important while we're on the USDA, which is this situation being reported out of highwire.com. You can check it out on highwire.com and also at farmersforum.com. This has to do with in Denmark. And they're warning us because it's happening here in the USA too. Very important to understand. This has to do with Bovaer, a drug called Bovaer, Bovaer, a drug called Bovaer that's supposed to, through their climate UN initiative, stop the farting in the cattle. I mean, just think of the same with Ozempic. Okay, it's the same. All right, but I'm not saying they're the same, okay? I'm saying for entertainment purposes only, these are the correlations because we are cattle to them. But the cattle in Denmark, this was a farmer, rancher who had left the Netherlands, moved to Denmark to try to escape what was going on there with the destruction of the farmland, the stealing of the farmland. In the Netherlands, she goes to Denmark and she said, now we're forced to give this drug to our cattle or else we can't be here. We can't operate a cattle farm, a ranch. And they have hundreds of cattle. And basically they were forced to inject this drug, Bovaer, into them. Oh, no, excuse me. It's added to the feed. And they gradually increased it as they're required to. They have to give it to them for 80 days. And she said from October 1st through the 30th, we had to increase it. She said, we already have 36 cows. We're having to put cows down. She said, what happens is they're in absolute agony. Massive miscarriages and death. And this is going on in the USA as well. And so Director Rollins out of the USDA, we need to get super vocal about this because people think, oh, it's USA beef, it's USA made, and etc. And of course, it's not mandated to do this, but we know so many things get through the labeling that aren't required through the current standards we have. And so I wanted you to know about this. And as we look at COP30 and as it's launching off, just a reminder, USAID with the UN funded out of Peru the mass tetanus vaccine against the Peruvians that they made happen as a humanitarian aid, and it was mass sterilization that resulted out of Peru. And again, Peru at the time back then was huge, massive native populations here that we're dealing with. So it's so important to understand that this is what's going on as Prince William is there just echoing his father and his grandfather. His grandfather said, I want to be reincarnated to be, and he was the head of, Charles is the head, but they were the head of the highest Freemasonic lodges in the world out of England. I want to come back as a virus to infect humanity to depopulate the planet, right? And Gates is leaving the climate train because he's losing too much money. And he's really on the AI train, which is now what we're looking at as just being absolutely disgusting for what it means for the takeover of our country. But with COP30, what I wanted to kind of reach back to what I said in my last video, of course, is we have the situation where they're saying that COP30 is all about saving the rainforests. And what I wanted to, preserving the rainforests. No, what it is they intend to create this NAC, natural asset corporations, in this protected zones like the rainforest, which is just, the natural wonders of God, that the incredible complexity and just endless amounts of medicines in the rainforest, plus it's just natural, incredible diversity and beauty and glamour. Well, this is about natural asset corporations. This is about trying to censor and tag everything existing, just as the Rockefellers did way back in the 19th century, the end of the 19th century, the creation of Big Med, the creation of synthetic medicine. It's the same now with this natural asset corporation, where all big pharma, remember with Brazil, Pfizer tried to say, which is where this COP30 is happening, that, Brazil has to sign over like its whole rainforest to Pfizer, as a guarantee. If we give you these COVID drugs, you have to basically sign over your natural resources to us. And apparently that didn't win out. But this is what they're doing. They want to make it traded, of course, the preservation of these places, not for, of course, our benefit to preserve the world for the climate and whatever, but to really make it so that we're not allowed, that humans that aren't this corporate private public partnership cartel aren't allowed to touch these things, aren't allowed to research them, aren't allowed to engage with whatever they deem with the natural asset corporations, and to trade them on the open market. This won't be the open market. Okay, we're talking the universal programmable ledger that the UN has been planning for some time to do with the digital ID and all of our buying and selling being controlled, et cetera, et cetera. And so I wanted to make sure that was clear. And just, switching over for a second, I will just mention this, as we're seeing basically in Ukraine, the largest Russian dominance that has happened, and the whole war is happening now. You're not hearing much about it because they don't want you to know that Russia has won the war with Ukraine 10 times over. And of course, Trump has kept the tomahawks away, constantly saying, oh, the EU can do what it wants with our, the NATO can whatever with our weapons. But those weapons don't even exist yet. Okay, they're not even built, and they take forever to build. But you get on Fox News earlier today, Condoleezza Rice, bringing her back from her way overdone stint, to come on and say, no, it's time we get that, release that 350 billion in Russian assets seized by NATO in the EU at the Bank of International Settlements, in Euroclear. And, in Belgium, this is in Belgium, and they're still having those drone swarms, right, going on in Belgium. And they tried to assassinate the Belgian prime minister recently, who was totally against this, basically saying, just release that 350 billion and stick it in a bank, stick it in a bank so Ukraine can use it as it needs, right? This is, Ukraine used to be the most, it was voted, whatever, the most corrupt country in the world, okay, and became more so once Obama and Biden did their will to have the Nazi regime create this war with Russia. And you get this situation of neocon Rice coming out and saying, give them the $350 billion. Okay, this is as there's huge riots, huge protests in Ukraine, in Kiev, right now about Zelensky basically dissolving the anti-corruption courts stopping the whole situation, the special prosecutors, to make sure that that corruption hasn't continued. Just complete mayhem going on there. And you even have the EU scolding him over this, that Ukraine has to, this is about NATO membership, of course, or EU membership, that Ukraine has to basically show that it is supporting the rule of law in a dictatorship with that's been going on now for 18 months with an unelected dictator, and that they also have to reinstate this corruption court and show that they're fighting organized crime. And these are the oligarchs. Viktor Pinchuk, he supports the whole Atlantic Council. Okay, you have with Bolton, who part of, as he's being indicted, he received all this money directly from Viktor Pinchuk. All of this is just disgusting. And so very interesting to watch this as we're seeing this roll out, and Putin basically refusing to come to Venezuela's aid as Trump is moving forward with these attacks on the cartels and this imminent sort of regime change in Venezuela. And so it's very interesting as we look at all of this. So I will continue on with that in my next video, because there's a lot coming forward. I believe in the next few days we have, of course, Viktor Orban coming to the White House next week, and we had, I think, Kazakhstan in negotiations with the Trump administration, saying that they are going to join the Abrahamic Accords. Okay, so that's an interesting thing as well. And so I wanted to cover this little story out of the incredible corrupt elections that just took place. One of the winners in Bangor, Maine, I think that's where Stephen King lives. He could, he's fully backs all this radical leftism, and his creepy mind, and yikes, might write a little vignette, one of his novellas, about this situation. But Angela Walker just got elected to the City Council of Bangor, Maine, and she is a convicted murderer. She's a convicted murderer. And I don't know the situation behind how this went down, but I believe there was, she was at Old Orchard Beach in 2002, and a Canadian man, I believe, made racist comments against her. I can't tell by looking at her what ethnicity she is. But anyway, she was convicted of his murder, where basically he was beaten to death, badly beaten, and then had sand poured down his throat to choke him out and kill him. And this woman, literally, she's in charge of the Bangor Area Recovery Network. I mean, what the heck, man? The Peer Services Network, okay? And she's in recovery for addiction herself, and she's the new city council member in Bangor, Maine. Down east, right? Bangor, Maine used to be super ultra, red as you can be. It was just American, it was just Portland, Maine, totally captured. I mean, it's disgusting. New Hampshire, they're inviting all the millionaires from New York to come and move there. That's coming out. And another interesting tidbit here is out of the Epstein monster situation. We get it coming out that Maureen Comey, according to the cellmate of Jeffrey Epstein, comes this story, that Maureen Comey, he had said that Maureen Comey, Epstein, said to his cellmate, apparently before they took him out and whatever, that he'd be offered freedom, that he would get out of jail if he could implicate Trump, okay, in the crimes that had happened. That's massive, huge, right? Huge. It's so everything's huge. But this coming out that Maureen Comey, James Comey's daughter, at the Southern District of New York, the most corrupt area, where just happens Ed Blanche happens to come from too as well. I mean, Todd Todd Blanche, but just saying. You get the situation of Maureen Comey, so it's said, and apparently it is credible enough to be coming out in mainstream newspapers like New York Post and others, where Maureen Comey had offered to Epstein basically getting out of jail, not total charges dropped, but get out of jail, get that little, ankle bracelet or whatever before, before Bill Barr comes to see you for your last day kind of thing. And just all you have to do is implicate Trump in these crimes, and you'll walk out of here with an ankle bracelet. So very interesting there. We'll be covering it more. And so as we're kind of winding down here at 45 minutes, I did want to talk about with Mamdani, just a reminder with Linda Sarsour, his mentor, what she came out and said, and we saw the mask come off. Mamdani was just like, I'm an unapologetic Muslim communist. Well, he said socialist, and his mean eyes came out. They're usually just kind of dead shark eyes, but they came out mean. And Sarsour basically said, it's the Justice and Unity Pact that elected Mamdani. When we had 80% of the Muslims across the country, and this is important for people to understand, across the USA, all the strongholds, Minnesota, Michigan, Texas, the Midwest, all these strongholds of jihadism, that the wealthy people donated, up to 80% donated to Mamdani's campaign, as did massively the Soros Foundation, Open Societies, et cetera, et cetera. It's all. But this Unity and Justice PAC is the same people that put in AOC. They couldn't put in Linda Sarsour, his mentor, back then, because we weren't ready to see the hijab wearing person in New York City. But now they've got it down, and she basically says, we did it because of the whole Muslim community from across the country giving the money. And so it's very interesting to understand that and to see where we're headed. And we have it released by the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America, out of New York City, that basically they have these requirements of Mamdani, and this came out of justthenews.com. I'll link it below, where the New York DSA, this was kind of leaked early, but now I think they've just released it, being like, what the hell, man, he's in. We can just say what we want. That it's all like anti-Israel, everything, but basically that New York City must divest from Israel, their city pensions, any banks lending capital to Israel must be divested from. They're going to regulate the land sales, every land sale, that people won't be able to sell their property, okay, without the permission, okay, of this commission or whatever Mamdani is supposed to set up. So you're captured with your land being lorded over by the whatever. It's just the globalist cartel. Call them whatever you want. They're going to ban Israeli products from being sold from those lovely government-run markets, which is ridiculous, insane. They're going to divest the City University of New York endowment from everything Israel, and rehire all their fired professors from the Red Green Alliance from the universities in New York. They'll dismantle the New York City Israel Economic Council and end the repression of demonstrators. So full rioting allowed, and New York Police Department training with Israeli forces. Yikes, I mean, that sounds like a good idea, I must say. Arrest Netanyahu and IDF soldiers who come to New York. And so that's what's going on there. Meanwhile, you do have the New York FD fire department commissioner resigning. Basically, he says he'll be gone by the time Mamdani comes in. Okay, this all the while that Israeli influencers and Sean Hannity coming out and saying, we are this close to a massive Theist attack. okay, hitting this country very, very soon. And, you know, does it first sentence after the Erica Kirk interview of her, you know, of Charlie Kirk's assassination, right? And so all very creepy and disgusting. And we have this, you know, like I said, you know, Bill Ackman, who did the struggle session with Charlie just before he was murdered there in the Hamptons in New York, coming out immediately to say to Mamdani, hey, if there's anything I can do to help with New York City, just let me know. Congratulations, right? It's like Netanyahu with Biden, right? The second he got in. So this is where we're at, and it's why I'm saying, you know, it's never too soon to call your senator, 202-224-3121, to say, could we get rid of that filibuster now, okay, and let Trump's executive orders be 100% legislated, that we can try to stop the total demolition of our country as we're seeing, you know, this tariff war going on and our captured Supreme Court or, you know, subpar intelligence Supreme Court trying to impede the tariffs, which are 100% legal, 100% normal, and are not taxes. Okay, they're not taxes; they're tariffs. And Trump has a whole plan, you know, to fight this if it doesn't go through. But our economy's hanging on by a tiny thread that is woven by President Trump and his economic team. And without it, we are screwed. So I want to just mention here before I go, the situation with Jared Isaacson, only 42 years old, being renominated by Trump to head NASA. During the shutdown, right? Three-Eye Atlas hurtling its way. It's gone by the sun and it's coming back our way, right? And you know, this interstellar object that doesn't lose mass, increasing in speed, seeming to have its own propulsion system. He's renominating Jared Isaacson, who is Elon Musk's pick for this role with NASA, and there was huge fights about it, massively. Sean Duffy stepped in as the interim NASA guy. Never meant to be the full-time NASA guy, but basically NASA stands, and maybe because we need somebody in there right now, right? But billionaire Jared Isaacson, who Musk has wanted all the time, it's very interesting because NASA, as Daniel List points out, a dark journalist, is the biggest repository, of course, on the real, true X-Files, meaning the UFO real files. Okay, it all exists within NASA, as we're having Spielberg's movie coming out soon called The Age of Disclosure, that's being filmed in the exact area in New Jersey where we had all that drone swarming happening last year. Okay, this is what's going down. And so, you know, this is a huge aerospace industry shakeup, because what we have with Isaacson is he's massively, you know, funded SpaceX. And you get this kind of private-public partnership, right, where all of our taxpayer dollars go to create this billionaire Elon Musk and every other billionaire. It comes from our taxpayer money through DARPA and in the military-industrial complex and the big tech world. But basically, you know, this is interesting because Susie Wiles seemed to have been really involved in trying to get Isaacson out. You know, we got a deep, you know, hopefully Dark Journalist Friday night, tomorrow's Friday, maybe tomorrow night, he'll be talking, kind of digging in here behind the scenes of what this is all about. But, you know, we know that part of, you know, what can be happening, what could be happening is satellite-based free energy, okay, that would make, you know, all of the other stuff moot, that there can be capture of, you know, the sun's incredible energy, etc., to make it all so that we don't have to pay bills on energy. But energy, of course, it has been the most important way that they control us. It's our energy. It's energy that we use to do our lives, has been the number one, even beyond, you know, I want to say beyond food because that's pretty central, but in food and water. But energy, of course, is how they control the masses and how they control the world. And so it's very interesting to see this kind of new physics arms race as the secret, secret space program or the breakaway civilization, whatever you want to call it, is kind of getting closer and closer to our realm here in real time as the AI, invasion's about to happen, right? This new Neo home robot you can buy for $20,000. It's all in puffy clothing. It kind of looks like a little robot stuffed animal for your home to wash your dishes and get your beer out of the fridge or whatever. All of this is coming out really, really fast, and it's way beyond that. It's AIs, with all these globalists, all these non-Americans or whatever you want to call them, coming to build your AI data centers here in the U.S. and then you can sell the extra energy of that great power plant you get to build next to it with nuclear energy or whatever back to the grid. No, okay, no. How about you generate tons of energy for the grid for the ability to even create that AI data center that's going to pollute everybody? Okay, that's a whole nother thing. I'm super against it. But I did want to say here with 3i Atlas and this whole situation with Isaacson and coming in with NASA and with Dick Cheney just dying recently, Dick Cheney was huge in the reconfiguration of continuity of government and the process to move it to Northcom. And right now it's General Gio. He was in charge of this massive drone operation that we saw play out in New Jersey. Now this whole thing going on in Belgium. And yeah, he was huge in the reformation of continuity of government, taking away power from the president and giving it to the head of Northcom, which is this General Gio, who's obsessed with all this, secret space program stuff because he's in the know. And that's when they go to the Phrma regions and the 10 governors who are appointed to lead. The president loses all power. It's a whole different situation. And it's very interesting right now because you have Colorado suing to stop Trump moving Space Command. He didn't want it here at Northcom. The whole Space Force Command wanted to remove it from Northcom and move it to Alabama. And Colorado is suing to try to stop this. Okay. So, they've already probably gamed out whatever's going to go down, whatever they're thinking with this 3i Atlas situation, whether it's man-made, whether we don't know what it is. Okay. We do know interesting things like whistleblowers in the past who are dead now, saying, hey, we have a whole off-planet officers list. Okay. We have a lot going down outside, and we have Palantir, of course, now involved in Northcom hugely. They got contracts to be involved in Northcom to basically do analytics and human behavior intelligence and all this kind of stuff with Northcom. So that's all going on with the continuity of government security, bringing in Palantir. And interesting, you have like billionaires that are hugely betting on the fall of Palantir, and that Palantir is way overvalued and going to collapse. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but I'll touch into it into the next video if I have more information. So, okay, I think I'm going to leave it there. There's so much more to say, but I'm at an hour, and so I'm going to end it here. So thanks so much for watching. I can never in one video just cover all the news because it's just endless. But I'm so happy to be back with you and share this time with you. And I'm praying constantly. I hope you are too. We're praying for God's, God's intervention of some kind of massive, sky event that they could be planning for us. We're praying for God's intervention and the safety of Trump and his team, and for the guidance and wisdom that he needs as he's driven, just around the bend. Okay, like Trump could be mayor of New York City in, the 2030s, like when he's in his late 80s, just as a hobby. Okay, and run it so well and do such a great job, and maybe he will. When we're dealing with just evil, we pray for God's intervention and the full armor on all of us doing the work, and excuse me, the inspiration for you to go out and do what you need to do to make sure there's no more Angela, what's her face, you know, on your city council, or the takeover of your city council by Islamists. It is just vital that you get involved and make that call to to Thune and the Senate. Links below to do that. But we are free, and it's so important how much you value that freedom and how much you know that what God gave you should be used. Okay, every minute used for good and for God. And so we are free. I will see you next time. And if you found something very helpful in this video, or just added information that you think is valuable, I'd be so appreciative if you would support the channel. And there's ways to do so below. And I'm so thankful for everything that supporters do for me. You are free, and I'll see you next time.